Welcome to my channel. My name is Abiodun. This is a Python class. I started a series from the scratch by introducing you to Google Colab and also the print function and some other basic things that you need to know about Google Colab in the first video I made. So in this video, I'll be going to data type. But before we go into that, I just want to let you know that this is Google Colab, where you can write your Python code. It's an online platform for writing Python code. Even if you don't have a computer system, you can search for it on Google on your phone, search for Google Colab, sign into it. If you are yet to have an account with them, you can sign with your email, whether Gmail, Yahoo, or any other mail or avenue that has been provided for you to sign in. Then you can start writing your code on your phone. So not having a system is not going to be a limit for you in learning Python. Anytime you have a system, you can use your phone. But if you have your system, you can always sign in on your system and sign into your Google Colab and start writing your code. So in this class, we'll be going into what I call data type. In Python, we have different data type. We have integer, we have float, we have strings, we have list, we have boolean, we have tuple, and we have dictionary. So I'll be taking them one after the other. Now, what is an integer? In Python, an integer is a zero, positive, or negative whole number without a fractional part and of infinite precision. Example include 0, 100, minus 10, and so on. If there is a decimal, it will be considered to be a float variable. We'll soon understand what a float variable is, but let me show you example of integer. Just like what I have here, let me clean this. And remember, you can delete cells in your Google Colab if you don't want them. So this is a new, let me assume I'm inserting a new cell now. So you just click on the code sign here, and if you want to make comments in your line of code, you can also use text, but the comment you'll be making here is different from the one you use hash with Python code. This one is a feature on Google Colab which you can use to make comments. So examples of integers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. It can be -1, -3, minus whatever number. So an integer is a whole number without a decimal point. It does not have anything after it. If it is going to be 1, it will be 1. If it's going to be 2, it will be 2. It's not going to be 2.1 or 2.2. No, that is not integer again in Python. That is a float. When your number starts, when your variable starts having a value that has decimal. For example, if you have, let's say, a equals to 1 or 2, which means a is carrying an integer value, which is what 2. Now, how do you know that this is an integer? Like now, if remember I taught you print function. If I say print and I say I want to print a now, and I say print a, let's say a, I can say if you want to know the type of data type that you are working with, or data type that a particular variable has, this is a. If I print this a now remember I've not run this cell. I told you in Google Colab you work with cell, and if you don't run each cell, if I don't run this one now and I'm trying to print this a, it will give me an error. Why? Because I've not run this cell. So Google Colab is not recognizing it as anything or as a Python code until I run this. That is when I can run this. And I told you under runtime you can run all the cells you have. You have more than one cell in your line of code. But if it is just a single cell, you can just click this play like icon, and when your code is correct, or when whatever you type in the cell is correct, and you click on a play like icon here, it will show you this green mark, which means you can go ahead and run the code. That is, the code is correct. Now I've run this, it is fine. So I can click on print a. Now if I print a, it will give me 2. But if I want to know the kind of data type that A is, if I say print A, let me just copy this. I say print A, let me just copy this, and I say type. Let me just put type. So you use open a bracket and you close it at the end. Now if I run this, you can see that the result is showing me that this data type is an integer by putting this inbuilt function type. So if you want to know the kind of variable or the kind of data type that your variable has, when you put this type, then it shows you immediately the kind of data type it is. So you don't need to disturb yourself about thinking about it. So once you put this type, it will print it out for you, and you can see the result here. So for example, if I put 5 also, I have to rerun this cell because I have changed the value there. If I run this again and I say print A, it's still an integer. So an integer is a whole number. It does not have a decimal. So I believe that should be clear enough. If it is 10, even if it is 50, if I run it, it's still an integer because it does not have a decimal. It will still give me an integer. So let's go to the next data type, which is a float. In Python, float are the numbers that contain decimal points. The floating numbers represent matching level double precision floating point numbers. The float is a method that returns a floating point number for a provided number or string. Now, in this example, if I put, let's say I put 50.6 and I run this code, I'm running it because I've changed the value. So because if I don't run it and I try to run this, it will not give me the expected result now, but I've run it now. So if I run this, you can see that the type, using this method, this inbuilt method type, it will give you the exact data type that a particular variable is carrying. So you know the kind of data type you use by using the method, the inbuilt method type. So it automatically print it out for you, that is, this is a float. So let's say if I say 3, a equals to 3, and I say r equals to 5, and I say print a divided. Before I go to some mathematical operation, let me just make it simple. Let me create another variable that will be c equals to a divided. Your divided now is your / divided by r. So if I have to run this cell again for Google Colab platform to recognize it, for the cell to recognize it as a Python code, then if I run this so that it can also recognize my c as another variable. You remember I told you variable are containers that contain a particular value, and these are the value. Now for this variable c, now this is the value, that is a divided by r. So if I say print c, when I run this, you can see that it still gives me float, that is printing a type. But let me also, instead of printing a type, now let me add a cell here. Let me print what c actually is. Let me say print c. You can see that with the value we have here now is 0.6. So, and that is why we have float as the data type when I put this type, for me to know the kind of data type it is. So float are numbers with decimal points, whether a decimal point or 2 decimal points. It's a precision number. So that is an example of data type. The next thing we'll be talking about is strings. Strings are used in Python to represent data with text information. It's some row of characters bounded either with single quotes or double quotes. For working with string, Python independently provides quite extensive methods and functionality. Now, examples of strings, I'm going to clear this up. Let me delete the cells. So strings, just like what we have here, strings are bounded with either a single quote or a double quote. So if you want to create a string, let's say a basket, or let's say name, let me say name equals to. Now in Python, it is advisable that you use small letters in creating your variables, because when you use capital letter, you might be having issue remembering it when you have plenty line of codes. But when you use small letters, you don't need to be changing your cap lock to whether capital letter or small letter. Just write your codes in small letter. It makes your work easier and faster for you. You don't need to be thinking, did I use capital letter as my first letter or small letter? No, just use small letter throughout. Now if I say name, equals to, let me say Abiodun, that is my name. Now I can't just write a string like this. I'm trying to create a string. I can't just write it like this. I have to put either a single quote or a double quote. That is when Python will recognize it. This is how it is allowed to be written in Python code. You can't just say Abiodun and you now remove the quote. No, it will give you errors. You can see the red sign. It's telling you what you have done is wrong, but until you put the right quote, whether single or double. Now, but you can't use single quotes and double quotes together. It's either you use single quotes at the beginning, then you end it with also single quotes, or you use double quotes from the beginning and also use the double quotes at the end. Either way you want it, it will be correct, but you can't use the two together. So this is a string. So if you have a list of maybe a basket that is full of fruits, and you want to create a list, you can't just write list without putting them in quotes, but we'll still get to list. But this is string, and this is how you create a variable that has strings as a value. This is a variable which is name that has string, that is the name of the person, as a string. So that is how you create string. So it could be anything. It could be a shelf. Maybe you have a shelf and you want to put some things in the list. When you put them in the list, they have to be in either a single quote or a double quote. So that is strings, and we should please take note of all these things, because they are the basic things. You use them a lot throughout your coding career. They are the things you use. They might look simple, but they are very, very important. So the next thing I'll also be talking about is list. A list is a Python data structure that is mutable or changeable ordered sequence of elements. Each element of value that is inside of a list is called an item. Just as strings are defined as characters between quotes, lists are defined by having values between square brackets. A list is a data structure used to hold a collection of items in a single variable. Lists are one of four inbuilt data types in Python used to store collection of data. Now, from here, let's say we want to create a basket that contains different fruit. Let's say the variable name, want to give it is basket. Now a list, you put it in a square bracket, unlike the other one. you put it in a square bracket. You open a square bracket. Let me remove this. You open a square bracket, then you put your list. Let's say the first list, the first item you want to put in a list. In this bracket, let's say orange. Let's say orange. Then you put comma. Let's say the next one will be let's say cocoa. Then let's say the next one, I can use single quote for that one. Let's say that one is pineapple. Now what we have here now, this is a list that contains item. The things you have in your list are called item. This orange is one of the items. The cocoa, the pineapple, they are all items in a list. A list uses square brackets to accommodate its item in a quote. Like these are text now. It could be number, it could be anything in a list, but remember that you put, when you want to make a list in Python, you use your square bracket. So if I run this cell now and I say print basket, already you know what it will print out. That is, if I say print basket, you remember your print function, you use it to print out the result you expect on your screen. If I say print basket, it's not going to print any other thing than the items we have here. So if I say print basket, you can say that it printed them out. So that is a list. You can have multiple lists, you can have multiple variables containing different lists. You still get to that by the time you start using them to write some codes to, as an example. But you just need to get yourself familiar with the way they work. This is a list for you. Now the next thing we'll be talking about is a Boolean value. Boolean is another type of data like integers and string, but Boolean variables have only two possible values, true and false. If you assign true or false to a variable, Python will consider it to be of the Boolean data type. Now, how do I mean by that? I'll be using this basket variable with the list that we created as an example. If I say, now Boolean either gives you a true value or a false value. If I say okay, we have cocoa. Let me say cocoa. In is an inbuilt method in our Python. In is an inbuilt method in a Python that you can use to carry out some actions in Python. If I say cocoa in basket, let me run this. Now what does this mean? Boolean value can only give you in two expressions, either a true value or a false value. Now if I said print cocoa in basket, that is, check if print is in basket. I mean print if cocoa is in this basket, that is, check if we have cocoa in this basket. If we have cocoa in this basket, so, and since we have cocoa there, then it means it is true. Now if I say, let me change it to, like, let's say bread. I say print if bread is in basket, that is, check if this bread is in this basket of this variable basket. Python will go and check, is there bread there? If there is no bread there, then it will return a false value. So which means now this kind of data type now is a Boolean value. This kind of data type is a Boolean value. Let me put type and it's a bracket. Remember, whenever you open your bracket, you have to close it. If you open two brackets, it has to be two that will close it. So what, like, look at it now. When I use type to check the data type, it's telling me that this data, the type of data type I have here is what? A Boolean data. That is, the result is a Boolean value. That is, it's telling me a yes or a true or false. So you can easily know the type of data type that your print function is printing out. Is it a Boolean? Is it a list? Is it an integer? Whatever you want it is, it will print it out for you. That is, it is a Boolean value. So that is how, so which means in Python code now, you can check some things. When you write your code, you can use Boolean to check if something is true in your line of code or in a particular list you have created, or probably you have a list of students that you want to check is also name in the list, yes or no. Then it will tell you, okay, it is or it is not. So Boolean value returns only true or false value. If the value is true, it will tell you that it's true, and if it is false, it will tell you that it's false. The next thing we'll be talking about is tuple. In Python, a tuple is a built-in data type that enables you to create immutable sequences of value. The values or item in a tuple can be of any type. That makes tuple pretty useful in those situations where you need to store heterogeneous data like that in a database record. So, unlike list, for list now, I'm going to delete this. For list, you can easily change the item in a list. You can easily change them. If you want to replace the item in a list, you can easily change them. But for tuple, you can't change them. They are immutable. When you say something is immutable, that is, you can't change them. They remain the way they are. A tuple can contain numbers and it can also contain some text, but you can't change them. But for list, you can easily change them. So that is what makes the difference between a tuple and a list in a Python programming. I will still show you examples of how you can change things in list, but it's not part of this lesson until you start writing some little code. Then I'll show you that. But you just have to understand how those data type works, how you create them, and what they are used for. And tuple is a this bracket, the common bracket that we use. It's not a curly bracket, it's the normal bracket that we use. So when you are writing anything, let's say a variable now, let's say let me just say a equals to, and you can say 1, 2, 3. This is a tuple. So let me try and let me add another cell to it and print a. Let me print a. Let me check the type. So I have to run this so that I'll be able to have access to it here. You can see it already. Python is telling me that this class of data type is a tuple. So you can easily know the kind of data type that you are dealing with by using this inbuilt method type. So it's already telling me that this variable contains a tuple. So that is how we know the kind of data type you have, and you have your tuple in a bracket and not a square bracket, but this type of bracket. So that is that for tuple. The next one will be creating an example on it, but we'll discuss that in the next video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out of any of these classes that I'll be and the videos I'll be posting concerning this and Python class. See you in the next video.